Knight.
Here.
Genzick.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Bontrager.
Here.
Pavilio.
Here.
Walkley. Balt.
Okay, approval agenda. The motion,
I'll make the motion, we approve it.
second?
Okay. Okay. Nichols.
Yes.
Genzick.
Yes.
Pavilio.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes.
Walkley. Bontrager.
Yes.
Okay. Approval of minutes for March 21st meeting, or corrections, deletions, whatever.
Move to approve.
Second
Okay.
Bear with me here. Bontrager.
Yes.
The minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Genzick.
Yes.
Pavilio.
Yes.
Knight.
it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're up to the public hearing. It's your turn.
What we have here, everybody, is a variance request by the Taylors. They bought this home on Washington Street recently. The lot is actually, and I'll have a different screen up later, or a different thing later. It's quite, it's sloped extensively from the west side, and it levels out as you get more towards the east and Higgins Street. But this photo is of the area of their home that they are looking to add on a garage, and they'll explain it, but the reason for the variance is they want to be able to build the garage here without having to go all the way back and have to change doors, entryways, do a lot of changing of the home there. And you can see a little bit there the slope. So this is the location right here. The house sits back quite a ways, or it sits quite a ways off Higgins Street, but I'll get into that here a little more. Essentially, they want to add on a two-car attached garage, which with the current plan that they have, which is to make the garage, and you've got actually some drawings of it here, as I do. It'll be 26 feet deep, and to have it 26 feet deep, even though the end of it will be 10 feet off the east side of the home, a 6-foot variance is what's required. It's not a 10-foot variance, it's a 6-foot variance, so there's a little bit of room there. This neighborhood is zoned R3 one-family residential. Normally a side yard setback is a combined 15 foot, so you could have 7 feet on one side, 8 feet on the other. But this being a corner lot, the Code of Ordinances under the rules and the what they call the district setbacks and everything, there is a footnote H, and it makes reference to corner lots. And in this one here, as you can see, the house is set back a ways from the street. And I believe it is set back about 20 feet from the property line, and I think 27 feet from the curb. So it's about 51 feet off the curb, and I believe 24 feet off the property line there. The property, and I threw a GIS on your thing too, it is quite severely sloped kind of in this direction here. So if they were to try and, for example, put a garage on this side, the street would be significantly higher than where, you know, you would go into the garage. You'd have a slope coming down. And this area here is level. This lot's been vacant forever, and it's actually so severely sloped that, in my opinion, it could probably just not be built on. It's just got that type of slope to it. But they bought this home earlier this year. Higgins Street also, as soon as you cross Washington, it ends at 2 driveways. So it's pretty much a dead-end street once you go just north of Washington Street. This is just a more spread out aerial view, and I put a copy of that on your desk there, and I put an arrow kind of showing the slope, the topography from west to east in that area. Higgins Street, as you can see on that side of the street, on both sides, there's only 2 homes on each side of the street. Section 4669B2 from the Code of Ordinances says the Zoning Board of Appeals may authorize a variance from the strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinance where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, or area of a specific piece of property at the time of enactment of the ordinance or reason of exceptional conditions of the property, the strict application of the regulations enacted would result in peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties to or exceptional undue hardship upon the owner of such property. Staff finding on that particular item, the lot size and most of the lots in this area truly are conforming because an R3 district actually allows for the smallest lots in our community, the 50-foot wide lots. So this is a conforming lot. What makes it difficult for in this case is the fact that it is a corner lot, and if it were not a corner lot, they could add on to the side of that home without any issues whatsoever. The topography of this lot sloping downhill from northwest to southeast, it would make it difficult to construct a garage on the west side of the home. The west side of the home, mind you, because it's not on a corner, they could go out in that direction to 7 feet from the property line. But it's the east side, the corner side, that they would not be able to. So going back quickly, this area where it's severely sloped, they could actually add on to this house and go 7 feet from the property line in that R3 zone. But that's, for this purpose, that's certainly not practical. Yep, showing this again. And you can see, going back to the very first slide, you can see where the deck and the sliders are basically located here. Also in this section 4669-4, and for the Taylors, this is stuff that the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires that it be reviewed under these standards. The first one is the requested variance will not impair an adequate supply of light or air to adjacent properties. Staff finds this is not going to change the supply of airflow, light to the neighboring properties at all. The requested variance will not unreasonably increase congestion in the public streets around it. Staff feels this will have no impact. If the variance is approved, it would have no impact on traffic volume. And in fact, it's a light traffic area because of Higgins Street essentially ending there, and Washington Street going to the east is only 1 block farther. The next is the requested variance will not increase the danger of fire and endanger public safety. This requested variance will not increase the danger of fire or public safety. And in fact, when built, it'll have to meet all the building codes, the fire codes, and attached garages have to have a fire-rated wall anyway. So that's part of the construction code. Lastly, I believe this is the last one. The requested variance will not unreasonably diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding area. Staff feels this requested variance is not anticipated to affect any neighboring surrounding property values. There is one more. The requested variance will not impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. Finding is the requested variance is not anticipated to impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city or the neighbors. Notices of this public hearing were provided. They were mailed to all property owners within 300 feet. The notice was in the Cadillac News a couple weeks ago, over 2 weeks ago. So everybody was given, proper notice. staff, we have received no comments from anybody on this. And lastly, based on a finding of compliance or noncompliance with the standards of the ordinance, the board shall approve with conditions, or deny the variance application. Reasonable conditions may be attached to an approval in order to achieve compliance with the standards of the ordinance. With that, again, here is the view of the home from the corner where they want to do this. And in my staff report, I believe I put that even if the variance is granted, the house will be sitting basically about 41 feet off Higgins Street, and they've already got paved parking for 2 spots. They're going to have to expand the paved parking. So between the, I'm going to click on something else here. Go back. Essentially, there will be, plenty of paved off-street parking. There's quite a bit there now with the detached garage off the to the south there. And with that, I will leave it with you folks. If you have any questions for me, the Taylors are here, and they can possibly answer any questions you might have.
Now, open the public hearing. Anybody want to make a comment? You can step up there. State your name and address.
Yeah, John, please, write your name on there.
Okay, my name's John Taylor, and our address is 726, not 627 Washington.
Oh, okay.
Transposition in a couple of those slides.
Well, I apologize.
That's okay.
I've got it right on this one.
Well, I didn't want to be back here next week to straighten out if we were had the wrong address. We just moved back into town. I've lived here all my life. Grew up about 4 blocks from this address, the corner of Stimson and Carmel. We're just trying to get an attached garage to our house. As you can see, neither one of us are getting any younger, and we'd like to be able to get both vehicles in an attached garage. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Any questions?
Mr. Taylor, you didn't build the house, is that correct?
No, we just bought it last fall. We moved in the end of December.
Yeah. And the sliders and the deck were already there when you?
Yes.
So that's nothing that you've created?
No.
Any other questions? Okay. Anybody? I guess that's all we need from you then.
Okay.
Now it's time for a motion or whatever to talk between us.
If this was an accessory building, would there be a side yard issue?
My opinion is yes. Normally an accessory building can be 3 feet from a neighboring property line.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to look under, and I didn't, I would have to look under accessory buildings for corner lots. But I know that, I believe we would treat it that way. And of course, again, it gets into, in some cases, topography. You'll notice there are some detached garages in the city that are not in the rear yard, but are in the side yard. And a lot of times, we do have some latitude due to topography and so forth, but I would have to say if a site plan came to me for an accessory structure, being a corner lot, I would probably refer it to you folks like we are here because of that footnote of the 20 feet. I mean, yeah. I'm certainly not an expert, but you know, on a corner lot. You also look at, I think the other thing you'll tend to look at is, you know, as we've done in some others, particularly on some lakefront homes and others, you tend to look up the lineup of, you know, the fronts of neighboring homes. This is certainly not the front of the house. And, you know, that would be an issue that probably, or could come into effect if they wanted to, for example, try something on the west side. But, yeah, the accessory structure, though, it says got to be at least 3 feet from any neighboring property lines. But me personally, in a residential neighborhood,
Yep.
I would certainly, you know, I would look at that.
And I realize the accessory isn't quite what we're talking about here. but
Right.
just looking at,
And actually, when the previous owner built the, you know, the detached two-car garage, you know, he set it back there. You know, he set it back there. So I think I measured that, and it was like 20 feet off the property line.
it appears that Taylor's home and the home south and the garage are all relatively in the same line.
Pretty much so, yep. There really is, it's kind of interesting, the right-of-way, city right-of-way streets, this is 66 foot wide. We have interesting things. Most of the right-of-way, for example, on Sunnyside Drive is around, or not Sunnyside, Holly Road is about 70 feet. We have a lot of neighborhoods with 60-foot right-of-ways. I think because the homes in this area are newer and the way it was platted out is probably the reason the right-of-way is a 66-foot right-of-way. But when you drive down that street, it's not a real wide street. You know, you could not, I don't believe you could have, for example, a car parked along the curb and have two cars going two different directions. I think one would have to stop and let the other one go by. And again, they've got adequate parking.
Higgins Street itself is only 2 and a little bit blocks long.
Right.
We did not buy.
That's okay.
May I speak?
You may. Go ahead, Joyce.
You just have to state your name and address.
We know the address.
I think we know it, but we still,
So we didn't buy this property knowing that we couldn't build a garage. We thought our yard was a lot bigger than it is because of setbacks from the city and from utilities and all that stuff that we weren't aware of. I would not have purchased this home without it. You know, I wouldn't have purchased it if I wasn't going to be happy with it, but we thought we could afford to put the garage on attached, and I would be glad to, you know, downsize to that size. I like the neighborhood. We lived in that neighborhood when we were young, when we were having our babies, and I have a lot of good friends there, so we just thought we'd update, but we weren't aware that it was going to be a big deal to put a garage on your property. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I looked at that property and its topography, there is no other place to put that garage, really. I would, I think that's the only reasonable thing, and I move that we approve it.
do we have a second?
I'll second
Okay. Nichols,
Yes.
Bontrager,
Yes.
Genzick,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Pavilio.
Yes.
Find your contractor and
We have our contractor, he's ready. The cement man will come next week.
building permits, electrical permits, and everything else. So.
You just gotta get your permits and have fun.
Well, the plumber was there today, wasn't he?
I'm sorry?
The plumber was there today, wasn't
Oh,
he?
that's-
We're just doing a bathroom too.
Oh, okay.
And we're gonna have full fence permits eventually here too, to fence in for our dogs, but it's been a busy time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good.
I used to be
Yep.
on that board 30 years ago.
Oh.
When he was young.
Are you wanna cure the problem with the fence, put a invisible fence in your yard.
Pardon me?
Put an invisible fence in your yard.
Oh, they're poodles.
I got 2 black labs and a beagle, and it works fine.
Okay, try it.
It just takes patience to teach them, train them.
Yeah, we kind of want to keep the big dogs and then they put out as well.
Well, they,
Oh, yeah.
They're 4.5.
that won't, can't control that, but
Thank you.
And if you miss this board, we can always use some more.
Pardon me?
If you miss this board that much, we can always use more people.
He likes to tell everybody he's retired.
okay, now serious side.
Pardon?
Time for the next one.
Time for the next one. Getting through it. This one here, Wright's Custom Body Shop. A couple years ago, they moved, I believe they were in Herring Township, and they bought a property, a 5-acre parcel on Leeson Street with a sizable building for them to move their body shop business there. Basically, this is the sign that they had up. Were you folks located on Platt Road?
Yes.
Was it? Okay. So this is the sign that they had at their business on Platt Road. And it's a pole sign. It's new. It's clearly an expensive sign. But anyway, they removed it, and it's now stored. But it is 5 foot tall by 10 foot, and the variance that they're asking for is they want to be able to install this sign at their facility on Leeson Street. And again, it's a very sizable lot with a lot of frontage. But in the industrial area, the ordinance currently allows for a pole sign of up to 32 square feet. This thing is 50 square feet. So basically, when they came to get a permit to put the pole sign up, timeout, you've got to come to the Zoning Board of Appeals, request a variance, and essentially it's an 18 square foot variance in this light industrial district. There really aren't many pole signs in that industrial district. They're mostly what I would call monument type signs. There are some short pole signs, but there aren't certainly any like this. Again, the frontage on Leeson Street is 330 foot, so they've got a lot of frontage, a lot of depth. When they bought this property, they had to do extensive interior work because of the fire code for body shops, paint shops, body shops. So I'm sure they got to know our fire marshal real well. But they did receive their occupancy permits. Kind of a thing that really struck me is driving on Leeson Street, and I guess where I'm going with this is, you know, Leeson Street, the industrial avenue, you know, it's not Main Street, Mitchell Street. It's not a street that gets 16,000 plus vehicles up and down it every day. And immediately to the north of their facility is the old Four Winds Boat Group Benetower, and they abut the property. And, you know, essentially this outdoor storage of boat molds and all this sort of stuff is one of the things you see when you drive by this site. You've got Padnos Iron across the street. You know, Padnos there, because it's of the type of junk they have, you know, they have some other rules that have to do with some privacy screening and that. But, you know, there is outdoor storage in that area of materials such as Four Winds. This being a sign ordinance, there's a couple different things. Leo printed something, and I put copies there. There are some additional things in the sign ordinance that relates to variances, and we'll discuss those also. But again, the standards and basically, is it your John?
Yes.
Or John? What we're going through now, these are things that the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires us to go through. and it's good. But this zoning board of appeals may authorize a variance from the strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinance whereby reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, or area of a specific piece of property at the time of the enactment of the ordinance, or by reason of exceptional conditions of such property, the strict application of the regulations enacted would result in peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties to or exceptional undue hardship upon the owner of such property. One of the things that is in the handout that I gave you, which is what Leo gave me, is it basically refers to item F under standards 3, item F, and it says the term hardship shall not be deemed financial related to the cost of the sign, the size of the sign, or the fact that the sign has already been constructed, or the fact that the sign is only available in standardized sizes. So while we know there is a hardship in the sense that this sign, was built, was used at their previous location, that is one particular item, and others that may apply also that we have to, we have to consider this. A possible undue hardship, which this clearly says you can't use, is that this expensive pole sign was purchased prior to them moving their business to the city of Cadillac. The site where they were at was a vacant building. I speak for, city staff and city manager, and that, we do welcome them as a new business into Cadillac. They moved from Herring Township. This again is the sign, and this is what they want to put up. The other standards we talk about from section 4669 area, or section 4, the requested variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties. Certainly with that big, huge property that they have in the frontage, this variance, it's not going to change the supply of light or air to adjacent properties. The next standard, the requested variance will not unreasonably increase congestion in public streets. We don't feel this variance is going to have any impact on traffic volumes. This pole sign, though, would need to meet all the setback standards for pole signs from the property line and roadway. And generally speaking, in our ordinance, generally speaking, the larger a sign is, the farther it's set back from the road. It should be. The next standard, this requested variance will not increase the danger of fire or endanger the public safety. This requested variance is not anticipated to increase the danger of fire or endanger public safety. Again, it'll be set back off the road well far enough that it won't get into the, that it won't affect traffic. Sorry about that. The next standard, the requested variance will not increase the danger of fire or endanger public safety. We're not anticipating that at all. The next standard, the requested variance will not unreasonably diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding area. Again, we don't feel this requested variance will affect surrounding property values. The next standard, the requested variance will not impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. Again, staff finding this requested variance is not anticipated to impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of this city. Staff comments, and I've talked to them about this actually already. If this were to be approved, staff feels a condition should be that all the other requirements of our sign ordinance be strictly adhered to. They also will be required, if this is permitted, building permits, electrical permits. We also get into lighting to make sure it's not over bright with signs, but certainly a sign of this nature if it were approved, would need a good footing, and that would have to be inspected. Again, public notices, the public notices for this and the previous hearing were in the same day's newspaper. They were actually mailed to property owners the same day. They all, everybody was properly notified, and we did not hear from anybody. None of the neighbors, nobody in the community had questions about this application. And again, based on a finding of compliance or non-compliance with the standards of the ordinance, the board shall approve with conditions, or deny this variance application. Reasonable conditions may be attached to an approval in order to achieve compliance with the standards of the ordinance. With that, I'll open it up for some discussion, and I know, Leo, we're gonna, I know I'll let you point out the other things on that checklist for the sign variance that you want us to consider and discuss. Does anyone have any questions for me? Again, I guess the big one with me is a sign of that size on Mitchell Street where you have the narrow lots and that sort of thing. And, you know, here you've got, again, a 330 foot of frontage, and, you know, the surrounding properties likewise are, you know, you don't have businesses just jam-packed on top of each other.
Any questions for Mike? Now, open up for public comments. Just state your name and address, please.
John Wright, 1216 Leeson.
Okay.
My big concern with it is we just want to make sure we do it right, and we want to find out what the best way to do that is, and that's why we're here.
The sign that's on the front of your building right now, is that the sign you want to put up?
It's not, no. That one is just one that we had. They were back to back, and we just split them apart so people could see what we were, because no one knows what we are there.
Right.
Lots of people just keep going by because they don't see it on the building. That's the biggest thing. We just want to get it out there where people can see it.
It is the same.
Is it the same graphic, or is it a
It
little
is the
different?
same graphic.
Same graphic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not the same.
not the same size. It's
Well,
actually,
That's just a cover.
Yeah.
Okay.
anything,
Any questions for him? Okay,
thank you.
okay,
Speak a little bit.
okay. Just need to state your name and address.
I'm Alexandria Sign. I'm the office manager at Wright's Customs, 1216 Leeson Avenue. So about the sign, the picture you showed, the second picture, the one where you're looking directly, you're going towards 13th Street, you're looking directly at Four Winds. So that's the front of our property. That's exactly where, if you could see our sign that's blown down from the wind, the last storm that we had, that's where that's at. We have a huge eyesore. I mean, it is an industrial field that we picked. It isn't the busiest spot, but if you took a moment to actually see the work that we've done on the inside and what the work that we're gonna do on the outside, not only are we planning to put our sign up, but I'd like to brighten that up a little bit, clean the garbage up.
Landscaping.
For Gray Hex, we did a couple jobs for them. They owe us about $10,000 worth of landscaping that we're just waiting on, because that sign is super important to us. We spent, I think, almost $14,000 on that sign 4.5 years ago. So, and we did save up for it, and we'd really like to develop the area. You know, gosh, we've been there. I mean, this October will be 2 years we'll be there. So we took a big hit. took a leap of faith is what I'd like to say, and we bought a building for an incredible price with a lot of space and a lot of updates. We've complied with everything, including the fire suppression and the sprinkler system, and a lot of that set us back about $130,000. We are literally at the end where we just we couldn't afford to even replace the sign that just the wind put down. I mean, no joke. We really need that sign up, and we're willing to make changes and to follow all of your recommendations, or electricians. We do have an electrician on hand. What is his
Brian
name?
Knaus.
Brian Knaus, that we deal directly with. He was the head of our electrical in the building with the building inspector, along with all the electrical for the fire suppression with Cafesco. So we do ask that you take into consideration, the work that we've done the past year and a half, and the amount of work that we're going to continue to do for the city of Cadillac and put forth, because we plan on being here for a very long time.
What kind of landscaping do you plan on?
We're hoping to be able to it's slightly on a slope. So we've noticed this is our second defrost.
Yep.
So we've noticed a lot of draining into our building.
Yep.
It came real close this year, that the frost, the melting. But so we're going to level that out. We do have a piping that needs to be insulated.
Yep.
So when we first moved in, the plan was to kind of make a roundabout driveway, so you can kind of come in one way and come out the other, and then the sign would be in the middle. Well, we have a pipe that is our sewage pipe, all of that, that is really high, super high, to where if you
Parking
drive
over
over
it,
it in
it'll
the winter,
freeze.
even if right before it freezes, and it freezes, you are done. It just froze 2 weeks ago on us, and we didn't have any snow on the ground. But if it gets cold enough, it will. So right now we have it blocked off. We're hoping, we're gonna extend, if possible, with permits and permission. We'd like to extend the driveway, because when you pull in, people can't pull out at the same time. It's just a little shy of being big, long or wide enough. I mean, I think we're probably 2 feet away from being wide enough. It's a little dangerous when people are coming across. There's a fence there, across from Pad Nodes on our side, and there's another fence on the other side towards Four Winds, so it does constrict the viewing. But the sign will be far back and high enough, and the reason why we wanted to go high enough on that pole sign is because if you haven't drove by, the weather and the plows, the big plows, we're not talking the little ones, but the big, huge plows, like to push all that onto the property, and it'll go 15 feet. And that's not a joke. And it'll just push it right over and plop it right over. And we've seen that it happened, before we bought that sign, it happened in the other facility. We had a smaller sign and it just toppled over. So it does have to be a strong enough pole. It has to be cemented in and high enough to where it can surpass the snow coming at it. So.
And some abuse.
Yeah, so we're gonna flatten the area. I'm hoping to be able to lay the sod,
Put
some
boulders
gardens,
on each
yep,
side.
some boulders, some, gardens, some bushes along that fence line
Fence.
there that you're seeing. It's pretty horrific at times, but we are in the industrial field, but that doesn't mean it can't be nice.
Okay,
Thank you.
you got any questions for either one? Okay,
Now Josh is what, your brother?
Yes.
Then you'll be in partners for this.
Yep.
So it's really just down to a financial.
Mike?
Yeah. Real quick, if I might add, in the staff report, and something I should have put in it that I forgot, but I included the aerial GIS that just kind of showed, how wide open it is and how far the building, as they say, is set back from the road. Prior to them spending all this money to get the building up to code, fire code and building code, even though this is zoned light industrial, they did have to go before the planning commission to get a special land use. Because of the use of chemicals and paint booths and so forth like that, having a body shop type operation isn't, it's not a permitted use by right. It's actually permitted under a special, land use, and the planning commission, of course, did approve that so that they could go ahead and, they weren't gonna put all this money into it if they couldn't obviously have a body shop there. So, just wanted to add that, and I did not have that in your staff report.
Okay. Comments? Motions?
So, just curious, if money wasn't an object, what sign would you envision that would stay within the parameters of the zoning? Did you ever think about?
We put a lot of time into picking that one out, and we did have one smaller than that. And the biggest thing with what we do is, if they don't know what we're doing, and it's hard to explain body shop besides putting letters on there, and that's why we made it so big with the cars. So at least if they see the cars, catching their eye. And it doubled our business. It did, by having a good sign up there.
We've lost a lot of business.
Yeah, a lot of people
I mean,
don't know
we
where
should-
we're at.
It's,
Yeah, but that's not always necessarily a signage issue, that's a marketing
yeah, but
issue, so.
that's not necessarily true. We
We're
did
on
our
radio.
research and we do our advertisement, but the biggest thing, there's no sign. There's,
Mhm.
nobody knows where we're at. We did move, but we've done, if you listen to the radio, we're on the radio twice a month, paying $500 for that. We're in the newspaper.
But would a 32 square foot sign do the same thing?
Lit up and let people know we're there.
It could.
You-
Very
you-
possibly could.
Comment on that. I have had several people ask me, do you know what's in that building? Yeah, I know, because my truck's been in there.
That's not our job, though, is to do the marketing. Our job is to.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, even with my business, people, first thing you ask, you got a sign out in front so I can find you? And that's not marketing, it's just, they're asking to say, hey, help me find you.
Even our customers that are repeat customers are saying, wait a minute, we can't find you. And
It's
we're having
dark.
to give them directions, and that's an inconvenience to our customers. I mean, the more people see our sign there, the more they'll know we're there.
If you drove down the road, and if you drove down the road, it's a very dark road at night. A lot of our customers, we like to have the customers drop the vehicle off the night before on a Sunday night, or a Sunday during the day. A lot of customers can't do it first thing Monday morning. They have families, they have to work, so they drop it off at night on Sunday. And that's another complaint, we can't see, it's super
It's not
dark.
good.
Even with the light on the top of our building, it still doesn't present what we have on the building or where we're at. The area isn't well developed, and again, that's in the future, but we spend approximately $1,400 or a little shy of that a month, and we have been for about 6.5 months in marketing. We just signed a contract with Haibu for Google advertisement, which is another $400 additional a month. We have 5-star ratings on the BBB, Google, Facebook.
Yeah, but our job is to decide if a 32 square foot sign would do the same thing versus asking for a 50 square foot sign, so.
This is one of those times where I'm not sure that I agree with what the ordinance says, but that's up to the planning commission and the city council, and our position is, or our job is to see if we can find a way to make an exception for this. But when it comes to the sign ordinances, we're really well delineated here and into what we can do. I'm having a difficult time coming up with a practical difficulty.
I see what you're saying there, Leo, but I would say if we put on, we'll allow that sign if they do the landscaping that they want to do. It would be so much of an improvement. I know that we're pushing the limits there, but it'd be so much of an improvement that's there. I mean, you drive by that place.
That's not why we're here, though. I mean, landscape.
I agree. What you're doing is wonderful stuff, but 3 years ago to the month, we told Temple Hill Baptist Church that they didn't have a practical difficulty to put a sign in.
I
in
still
theirs.
regret that decision, to tell you the truth.
And that goes right back to what I said in the beginning. The sign ordinance isn't one I'm comfortable with, but that's not my role. Our role is to see if we can find a reason that this ordinance doesn't apply here or shouldn't apply here.
I would say for improving that area, it would look, I mean, you drove by there, I'm sure, Leo.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best looking place, but it is, a lot of people are on that road, tourists and everything else. I would like to see that place look a little better with, like they say, some sod and some stones and stuff. And so, yes, we are putting up a big sign, but I don't see that it would hurt anything. I think it would make it a big improvement there. So,
Yeah, it's a line we have to be careful, because if we make exceptions here, then
yes,
Mhm.
we have to be
I agree.
consistent.
But you judge each one. It's not a,
If that's the case, then we follow the guidelines set in front of us.
but you know, that sign would disappear in that lot. You know, it'll disappear, so even at 50-foot
I
square,
understand what you're
it'll just
saying.
flat disappear. I mean, not that they can't see it, but nobody will know.
Well, the snow and the rain, you won't see it at all.
Mm,
You won't
it-
see
it'll
it. I'm
just-
telling you, that snow was.
Well, that's just a height issue, so.
We did have them taken it away because we didn't have no more room to spec it at a certain point.
There isn't a limit as far as height, is there?
Is that a lighted sign?
Yeah, there is, they're well below that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well,
So they
they're
could
well
raise it.
The
below
fence
that.
line is right there, so even if we did put a smaller sign,
Yeah,
you wouldn't even see it coming from the other direction. Coming from 13th Street, you won't see our sign.
yeah.
At all. So who's gonna benefit, what's gonna benefit from that? I mean, to be honest.
Well, we just have a set of guidelines and rules, ordinances that we have to try to follow as close as we can. It's nothing personal,
No,
so.
I understand. I've read them.
tell you the truth, I move that we approve it with an amendment that you do the landscaping,
With a condition?
yeah, with a condition of the landscaping and I don't know how we want to word that part, but some type of landscaping to improve that area there.
And it fits all.
And what's the practical difficulty then, Carl? That, this part of the ordinance specifically says we've got to have a practical difficulty.
The practical difficulty is
You know,
for
part-
them to compete with everybody else in town.
The area they're in.
Yeah,
Well, but you do that with other means other than signage also, so.
well, signage is a big part of it.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the biggest parts, to tell you the truth.
50%.
Yeah, I mean, you look at all the signs that all these businesses put up. You
Just
see
your business.
McDonald's from how
Would
many?
they find you if they had the subway off the wall?
Hey, with 12 stores, I know what signage
Yeah, I mean,
costs and things, and you know, when you're in a strip center and stuff, you put the size that they allow, and
Yeah.
you know, when the logo changes, you spend another 20,000 changing it, so, but you stuck with the guidelines, so.
And they vary from one place to
Yeah,
another.
every town was different, so.
What you can do in one locality, you can't do someplace else, and that's,
So I get the cost side of it.
With Mike, this isn't Mitchell Street either. That would be a different ballgame.
But the ordinances doesn't specify a street, it just.
Wouldn't another issue being not being able to see the sign from one way? Wouldn't that be another issue though? I mean, if you could see it from.
We can't control that, I mean, that's,
But you can if you,
If they
I
pull
don't
the
mean to
fences down, they can.
yeah, and to be honest, if you can't see it, then it's gonna affect the area, it's gonna affect the business.
Mike, how high can they have their sign without me digging back and looking, do you know offhand? Sorry. That's,
Some interpretation, this would, I would guess they could go up to, well, let me, bear with me here.
you know, Part G, I think, kind of gets to what you're talking about, Carl. It says the alleged hardships and practical difficulties, or both, which would result from a failure to grant the variance, must include substantially more than mere inconvenience or mere inability to attain a higher financial return. I really want them to be successful. I want people to know where they are, but I really feel like my hands are tied by the ordinance.
And we have to leave personal
I'm-
we have to leave personal feelings out of it, the decision.
Yeah.
What we think was best for them.
To answer your question on the height,
Page
the
right.
ordinance for the pole-type sign in the light industrial says not higher than the maximum height limitation of the use district in which it is located. The use district, light industrial, then refers to see the airport overlay. Yet, buildings, could be built 40-foot high.
The boats are 20 feet high and you still can't see your
Yeah.
building next to it.
We've done a pretty good job. We did this out at the Cadillac Junction with the gas station, Tim Hortons, and that out there. We worked with them, they worked with us to have it not higher, that particular sign they have not higher than 28 feet. Another good example is the Shell station on Mitchell Street. I believe that's around 28 foot tall. And ironically, that is the first property that is in the B3 zone district on Mitchell Street, whereas like the Cobb's Mitchell building is a B2 central business. When you get past Chemical Bank and you get past Cobb's Mitchell, then it becomes a B3 district. And that's where you see, of course, the taller signs such as the Shell station, the Ponderosa, and those type there. So,
There's a sign on Mitchell Street that's 3 signs high. And I can't just place it. I think it's on the west side.
PBS
of
or?
Mitchell Street, there's 3 signs high.
Yeah.
And that's really up in the air.
You got the Midas?
I don't think so. I can't think right now. It was a credit union,
Sure.
the very top sign a while back. It's not there now.
Well, the big one is the PBS there, the old PBS. That's bigger than really,
And that's where we fall into. We just start granting them because we
well,
feel
we
that.
didn't grant them that.
I'm just saying though, but then over time, we just, why
Yeah.
have an ordinance there?
Yeah.
We just,
But this is what we've been dealing with when you're a high percentage of the meetings of, we're dealing with outdated ordinances. And I don't know, if we want to set a precedent, we better go review the last 3-5 years, because we've updated old, obsolete ordinances because of odd-shaped properties. And I guess it kind of impresses me, and I agree with Gary, with the, if they could improve, and Lord help us, I think that Leeson Street could use improving. As far as just the, even the one picture with the land line there between Four Winds and your place. I think it could use improvement.
If I might add, the ordinance, you're right, because I believe it goes back to the 1980s. And, we're in the process of reviewing, and we hope to have something to take to the Planning Commission later this summer so that council could maybe approve it this fall. And I'm not just speaking signs, I'm talking the zoning ordinance. And in particular with signs, we are looking at, well, for example, we have areas that, and I'd mentioned the Cadillac Junction, the way the ordinance reads, you could go 40 foot high. So we worked with them and just said, we just don't want to start that. We don't want to start that there. And they worked with us really, really well on that. And I know in particular with the Baptist church, you know, we've had discussions of, in a residential area, you can't go higher than 8 foot tall. And they wanted to go 10 foot. And, you know, we've had discussions, particularly with signage, is scale. Could we use scale, meaning frontage? You know, I mentioned they've got 330 foot of frontage.
Sure.
You know, scale 50 foot lots, 100 foot lots versus 500 foot of frontage. And but Larry, I couldn't agree with you more that the ordinance is, well, we know it's very old. We know it's very old.
And I think it's an eye-catching, attractive sign.
The thing is, though, if they didn't already have the sign, it wouldn't be an issue. They would have just had a sign design that would fit the.
And that's another one of those things that's addressed here. It's having the, where did it go? The fact that the sign's already been constructed is not a hardship. It certainly feels like it ought to be, but I guess I understand why they have that there.
Carl, you made a motion. Do you want to stick with it?
I'll still stick with that.
I'll second it.
What is the motion?
The motion is to approve the sign with condition that they do the landscaping that she said, as far as sod, some stones, shrubs or something like that.
We would want to see the city, I know our community development director would want to see a landscape plan. Okay?
I guess it's up to you.
Bontrager,
Yes.
Pavilio,
No.
Knight,
No.
Nichols,
Yes.
Gensick.
Yes.
3-2. I will double check the ordinance. I believe it reads that on this type of a variance, it's, if we've got a quorum, it's the majority of the quorum. I will double check, I'll have to double check. The entire board is 7, which would mean, if everybody was here, you would need 4, not 3. There are things within our zoning ordinance with variances and such that does require a majority of the full board. So I will look that up and I will let all of you know also, but I just want to read the details because I know there are a couple of specific things in the ordinance that needs a majority of the full 7 board. Okay? The motion passes. I'll be in communication with you folks real soon. Okay?
Thank you for your time.
Board members' comments.
Mike, we've had this, like you said, this sign thing. This is how many times we met because of that. And I don't agree with what we have here. Is there anything
In
we
the
can?
ordinance, you mean?
Yes. Is there anything that we can do to help you change these?
My suggestion would be that if you have, you know, you don't need to go through the entire thing, but if you have some specific examples, such as this one here, that you want to address versus how the ordinance reads, as, you know, Leo pointed out, you know, the practical difficulty. If you have some ideas, please put them in writing, get them to me. One good thing, the person who we've hired to help with us, updating the ordinance, I like to use the word updating versus completely rewriting, is Jerry Adams, our former development director, who's got 40 years of experience between working here and a consultant, and in fact is the reason Pete Stalker hired him, was the city was using him as a consultant so much. But I would sure give some thoughts, some ideas, because I'll tell you, these sign ones are tough ones. They're not, you know, I just think they seem to be the tougher variance applications to deal with, you know. And, you know, I guess a great example is we went back to the Clam Lake Beer and that projecting sign out in front of their building that came before you folks. And, you know, the scary part there was all the projecting signs that are just massive that were previously allowed on Mitchell Street, you know. And the ordinance in that case now I think is well written, but those signs were up there even before the early 80s. So there is updating that needs to be done. I think scale should be a factor.
Well,
You know?
when we approved the signing for the movie theater, we didn't bring these up.
I don't remember what the,
They
oh,
were-
wait, in that case,
The
we
movie
had,
theater one had to do with the vertical height they wanted to go up, but one of the things that we found in that was they were actually reducing the square footage of signage. They actually reduced it. It's a smaller footprint, yet to get that image they wanted, that was the variance, was to go up higher.
we started out with something that was non-conforming.
Yes.
And made it
Yeah,
less
but-
non-conforming.
Yeah, but if we went with this, we
Yeah,
wouldn't have
we'd
been able to approve that.
It's very difficult to come up with a
Right.
practical difficulty with the signage because of that section.
Yeah, I mean,
Just-
that's what I mean. We'd have to deny almost everybody that came up that wanted a sign because of the way these are written.
Yeah,
Don't you agree?
I do. As I said, this is not a,
I know you don't
Ordinance
like
that
it,
I-
but
One
I
of
mean, I don't
one of the
like it.
difference was the movie theater didn't have this sign sitting on a shelf and wanted to reuse it, so that was part of the decision too. Again, smaller footprint. But yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah,
tough.
if we would've put this out with that sign, we never would've been able to pass that either.
There really isn't any sign we could have passed with it.
Exactly.
Follow that to the T.
I think there was another sign that we approved also.
Well, there was, church on, 55, the first one going towards Lake City, before they got the sign they got now.
That's before I worked here.
Yeah, Jerry was there. Their sign was a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be, but they got rid of a lot of little garbage signs. So we traded a little bigger for, get rid of crap, excuse my term.
Didn't we have the Catholic church that came up for, that wanted a sign we passed?
No, well, they might have, not before we were on it.
Theirs was height.
height.
They wanted to go above 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
That was the big issue with the Baptist church.
You know, to me,
is
in
they wanted to
residential-
go higher than 8 foot.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of
also,
a
I
different
believe,
one.
wanted to increase the
Square footage.
Yeah.
You know, to me, like a church, you're in a residential area.
Mhm.
You know, your neighbors gotta look out over and see that sign. Do they wanna see a big old sign, even if it is, 2 feet tall? Would you wanna see a sign? Maybe it's going flashing at you?
Yeah, and that's another place where they had a lot of frontage, as they do
Right, yeah.
here, and so,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the issues, if you've got a narrow lot and a sign in front of it, rather than having some space around it. Right.
I don't think
But
we
once
kept
again,
them from not succeeding. I mean, they could have gone higher for visibility on their sign. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
these guys. I mean, there were other options.
I think and I know this really struck me though, driving by, just driving from south to, north on Leeson and, in an industrial area,
We passed it
certain
right by.
outdoor storage is allowed without screening,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
Now, if a residential neighborhood were abutting Four Winds, they would have to have, screening. Now, Padnos, even though they're not next to a residential neighborhood, there is a specific thing in the ordinance relating to junkyards, that sort of thing, scrap yards, having to have that regardless of, and I think that has to do too with, things possibly blowing around and
That's
so.
almost
so-
back to Lady Bird Johnson era.
so.
That was one of her pet peeves, that and signs.
Is that before my time, or?
I don't know. I mean, I can remember, and that, some of these junkyards, they made some terrible, the sign, the fence looked worse than the stuff inside. You go out, to look in J&H, they're on, was it Jennings Road? That fence looks terrible.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And
now, yeah.
it looks worse than seeing the junk in there, to me. I mean,
I don't know what it looks what it looks like inside. I didn't dare go any further.
but you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's some of it, some of the rules are
Yeah,
in the way they,
No,
but we could just give you a letter. Of
suggestions,
say-
yeah, letter,
suggestions.
keep it, do it the way you want. I am going to mention to the city manager that, we had one here tonight that was conflicted. I mean, we had a split vote. And I'll let them know, and I do plan on also, when this new ordinance gets ready to be released for the planning commission, we'll make sure you folks are invited and get copies so that you can review it also. That'll be very, very important.
well, okay. Well, I have kind of a comment different. Something was brought up to me after the last minute about people stepping on each other's, as they're saying stuff, someone step in and cut them off,
Interrupting each other.
interrupting. We need to, didn't hear that tonight. Now, I know I'm probably guilty of it, but we just need to watch it and let the person finish their comment. Be courteous.
If I'm guilty of that, I apologize.
Actually, I'm probably guilty of it.
Likewise.
We're probably all guilty of it. We just probably don't realize we've done it.
I mean, it just looks bad when someone's standing in front of us and we're
Yeah,
not being professional.
that's all I got to say. Anything else? Then adjourn.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.